It's the system. It's the system. It works. And if we, my office could get a 100% conviction rate if all we did was take the easy cases. Sometimes you've got to take that effort and go forward. I could give you a long list of cases where the evidence was close. It was a close call, maybe like this one, where the people sit in prison now having been convicted by a jury. So that's what a good prosecutor's office does, which is aggressively goes after people we believe committed these very vicious crimes.
Any second thoughts about Mr. Aidala in terms of how you handled him throughout this process?
If I were to roll the clock back to the beginning, we never would have cut a deal with him. However, that doesn't mean I would have convicted him of murder. And the reason for that was because I had that opportunity. After we set aside the deal with him, or after we said we're not going to call him as a witness anymore, and we filed a motion to set aside the deal, we then sat back and said the same process as I did with Bayat the last few weeks, which is the evidence enough to show that he is a murderer, that he was engaged in this? And I concluded very strongly, more strongly than I did on Bayat, that it does not. As a matter of fact, on that first prong that a prosecutor must find, which is the prosecutor believes beyond a reasonable doubt that the person committed the crime, as to Mr. Aidala, I know he committed the crime of accessory by getting rid of Keith Green's body. I do not feel within myself proof beyond a reasonable doubt that Mr. Aidala was anything more than that. So it's even less than what I feel about Bayat and Lee. And so for that reason, I am sorry we ever made a deal with him, but the outcome of his case in my mind would have always ended up where it is going to be come January for his sentencing.
Would he have made a difference though as a witness?
Might have. That's an imponderable because it never occurred. Or it might have been worse. It might have, might have hurt our case. It may have caused the juries to say, the prosecution case is based on this guy who's so, inconsistent, multiple stories, threatening defense witnesses. We're never going to rely on him. So it might have hurt our case for all we know. Imponderable.
Does anyone know what Tiffany Lee is up to today? I've heard from other sources that she's traveling in China. Is there truth to that?
We've heard maybe the same sources, but we've heard she's traveling in China, but she will be coming back. She's got a child custody battle to fight. And somebody can sue if they want. I mean, that's not, you all remember the OJ case. That jury acquitted Mr. Simpson, but a civil jury found him civilly liable for the murder of those two victims.
Are all the civil cases still in place, or?
I don't know the status on them. They were. Haven't heard about anything being dropped.
Steve, you talked about spending many hours talking with the jurors. Can you say some of the things the jurors told you about their deliberations, or is that something you can talk about?
Without wanting to violate what they have said, overall I would just simply say they felt that they were unsure of, certainly were very unsure of where the murder actually might have occurred. They were unsure. They did not give credence to the concept that he might have been killed up in Sonoma, that was not anything that bogged them down. They just overall had the feeling we can't, for the 6 people who acquitted, and all 12 as to Miss Lee. As to Miss Lee, they just felt they had enormous trouble believing that she had the motive to want to kill him because of the money aspect. They just didn't find it. As to Mr. Bayat, they did, and feel there was a motive there, but for others it said the evidence just didn't give them that sense of security. As one of them said, I think the foreperson said to us, that it just didn't measure to where we were told it had to be an abiding conviction. That means one that we would feel good about in 10, 20, and 30 years, and it just didn't reach that level for us. And so it's more than a feeling, but it was based on their assessment of the facts. So that's sort of where it was coming from.
The door was left open a little bit, pending any further developments or new evidence.
Something were to come forward, it's if somebody opens their mouth, somebody does, or a witness were to come forward who tells us something.
So does that mean that the case is sort of still being pursued officially by your office? Can you kind of give us a status of where it officially stands?
Fair question. No, I would not call it being pursued, but I think as they do in the police world, they'll say a case is moved into inactive status, but it takes all of about 2.5 seconds to activate a case. So if somebody were to come forward and say, hey, I've got something new for you, and that was the core of it. That's what I said to my prosecutor. I need to hear something more before I'm going to allow you to go try that case again. I'm going to need more. On 6-6, 11-1, 10-2, you go back and figure you just pick a better jury. But I needed to hear more than I'll try harder. I needed to hear something substantive that would convince me before I go invest taxpayer resources to try this man again that it would be a difference. And I just didn't have that. So I would say, though, that if that were to come forward at any time, that case remains open forever.
Did the jurors give you their opinion about whether or not you should retry Mr. Bayat? Did they encourage you to do that? Were they neutral? Did they say
They did
anything?
not. Neutral.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? Sometimes we get that. We'll get jurors who voted to convict who said, "Go back and get the SOB. Don't let them get away." And in this case, we didn't hear that. It was even for the 6 who convicted. It wasn't an easy call. They deliberated for 12 days. That's one of the longest here in many years.
By the way, I know that on the conspiracy it was 7-5. Which was 7? Which was 5? They never did say.
Conviction.
Conviction.
7 in support of conviction for the conspiracy. 6 on the murder.
Okay.
So what that would mean is that for one juror, that number 7, who went for him, he didn't think the evidence supported that Mr. Bayat was the actual killer, but they felt he would have been involved in the agreement to kill him. That meant that they thought it was Adela who did the killing or not. Who knows? That juror we did not get a chance to speak to.
Thanks.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
And other than that, good luck at getting.